My brothers, the dependence of the human spirit on the spiritual nature of the soul is the foundation of God's eternal thought to make his creatures the object of his love. The principle of universal religion rests upon this foundation, which reveals to humanity its future, freed from the yoke of carnal nature's vices and radiant with the attributes of the soul, whose nature is divine. The Messiah gives us this profound spiritual revelation, one meant to awaken our human consciousness so that we may now begin to sense the truth of our divine origin. Let us give our full attention to the teachings he brings from heaven, especially when he tells us the dependence of the human spirit on the spiritual nature of the soul. He is telling us that the most essential part of our spiritual being is our soul, and that the spirit, our thinking faculty, depends on the soul in order to attain spiritual perfection. If it is the soul that instructs the spirit in everything it needs to grow in perfection, then this means that knowledge flows from the soul, and the spirit must study, analyze, and delve into this knowledge. Through this inner process, it forms ideas, beliefs, and concepts, and by putting them into practice, it absorbs them, engraving this wisdom into its spiritual memory. It is this process that gradually leads the spirit to wisdom and spiritual perfection. This truth assures us that our sensitive nature, the soul's emotive faculty, should always stand above the spirit's intellectual faculty. It tells us that within the core of the soul lies, in potential, all the knowledge the spirit must acquire on its long journey toward perfection. As we mentioned in the video Universal Religion 01, Messiah, the incarnated spiritual being, or human being, is free to live life as they see fit and is under no obligation to follow any will other than their own. This freedom belongs to the spirit while it is incarnated in a physical body. In the spiritual world, however, where the spirit exists without a body and without a brain, the source of concepts and ideas tied to physical life, it becomes clear that the spirit depends on the attachments, desires, and appetites of its body. But once disembodied, the spirit becomes dependent on the soul, just as the Messiah tells us. In physical life, free will becomes entangled with the body's impulses and often opposes the spiritual dependence on the soul. When this happens, we live materially, ignoring God and turning away from the foundation of God's eternal thought, which is the foundation of universal religion. Now we can understand why this love that springs from the soul, when we love the Creator above all else, rises above human desires and frees us from the yoke of our carnal nature. Through the soul, we receive the light of truth from our Father, our spirits are illuminated. This light knowledge provides everything we need in life. Now we know, if we act in order, balance, and harmony in our lives, we fulfill the sacred laws of God. It is then that the attributes of the soul shine forth, giving us a deep sense of certainty, clarity, and security in how to live according to those laws in all our actions. When the Messiah adds, whose nature is divine, he is telling us that our soul comes from the spiritual creative source, manifested by God, and is of the same divine essence. While he does not say whether the spirit has the same nature, we can infer that if the divine intelligence of the spirit must attain spiritual perfection, then it too must be a creation of God, one that begins as an empty vessel, without knowledge. This is why the Messiah tells us it is dependent on the soul to learn how to become perfect. The Messiah is teaching us, through the divine truths he brings from the Father, that universal religion is not a human idea, it is a spiritual state of being that arises from the soul. That is why, in the video Universal Religion 01, Messiah, he tells us that he has brought it from heaven and desires to establish it within our dwelling, because the kingdom of God his love shall be upon the earth. The Messiah wants us to achieve the most complete glorification of the Most High. We glorify the Most High by glorifying God in our lives. To live in order, balance, and harmony is to fulfill his sacred laws. To live in order is the same as loving God above all things, even without being conscious that we love. With this, and what has been previously shared, we will unite in love as children of God within his embrace. This is not a human gathering, but a prayer in the temple of our hearts. It is the act of loving one another.